Okay, welcome back. We're on page 475. We're getting ready to go to a new topic on how to import XML data. Well, before we can do that, we really need to have a brief discussion on what the heck XML really is. Okay, so XML is another markup language, and you've probably heard that term before, like with hypertext markup language. So HTML is a markup language and XML is a markup language. And they're all about taking information and coding it in text. So let's show you what one looks like in the real world. So I'm going to just double click on an XML file. And it makes it, you can see from the little icon, it's going to launch Internet Explorer. That's okay. And so there's my XML data. And there is a pattern to it, and there's some rules, but we're not going to get into all that. So basically, what XML is a way of taking complex data, like from an Excel spreadsheet or a Microsoft Access database, and exporting it and importing it as text. I mean, there's no numbers here. Everything is just plain old text. And so text is kind of universal. So a lot of people kind of use XML as sort of like a universal translator using, Star Trek vernacular, where I'm trying to remember the middleware discussions we've had in the past where we talk about where companies have, systems that wants to talk to another system. It has to go like through a translator. Well, that's what this is all about. Okay. So that's what XML is. And it kind of sort of looks like HTML. HTML has a lot of rules you have to follow. I mean, you have to have this tag, and it has to have followed by that tag, and this has to be this. XML, they're a different set of rules. You can make up a tag as you go along. For example, this name, I could just add one called age and just make up a tag called age and then mosey on. It doesn't really matter. In fact, I'm going to do that just for the heck of it. Okay, I'm going to open this guy, except this time I'm going to open it in Notepad. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to mess with this thing, and I'm just going to type age 12 and then age. Okay? So just for sake of, I'm going to speed this up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just put the age in here, then I can edit it very easily. So I'm editing a text-based HTML file. Kind of cool, huh? Okay, so let's make 42 and 22 and 32 and, I don't know, 44 and 2. Okay, cool. I'm going to just save this guy. So now I just messed with, that's how easy it is to mess with XML. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is go to Microsoft Excel and attempt to import a thing. Now, you would think that I'd be down here going from web, from text. It kind of sort of is a text file. And let's look at the file extensions it likes. It likes PRN, TXT, and CSV. Well, that's not going to work for me because I need one that says XML. How about other? So we got SQL from an XML data import. Cool. That works. There is another way that they're talking about, and it goes back with using the developer tools. And we're going to do it this way. So if I go to developer, by the way, if you skipped the last chapter, you don't actually have the developer tab, so shame on you. Okay, when I go here, there's a thing called sources. And what this will do is it'll open up a task pane off on the right-hand side. Now, in the XML world, the machine has to look at the data and try to figure out that that name was actually text, and the email was text, and the age was actually a number. It has to figure that out. Well, there are ways that you can tell the actual XML file a little bit about itself. It's called the schema. And if you're a database person, you already know what a schema is about. A schema really is a definition. It says, well, this field is text and it's 40 characters long, and this field is a date, and this field is a number. It has all these little things telling you what the heck these things are. Well, XML, that example XML file that we had, it didn't have any schema in it whatsoever. So I'm going to go here and click on this and say, I'd like to add an XML file. Okay. So I go here and I pick this XML file, and it's going to come back and say, dude, I don't see a schema in here. Would you like me to just make one on the fly? And I'm going to say, yeah, sure, what the heck. Now, it would be an awful lot better, I'll admit, if all the guesswork were taken out. Because, for example, this machine could never know that the name field was 40 characters long. Yeah, it would never know that. Okay, so I've done that. And so I've added an XML map. I'm thinking, cool, all right. And there it is. But where's my data? So that entire procedure of coming up with this XML source and XML map, by the way, Microsoft Excel calls a schema an XML map. So I'll probably say XML schema half the time and XML map the other half, but what the heck. So, how come I didn't actually get my data? You know, I got the schema. Well, schema, that's okay, but where the heck's the data? So now that I have that, there's this little import button. If I hit that, and it says, where's my data? Now you might be thinking, didn't I already tell you that? Well, the first time we went through that was only to build the schema/map. Second time through is actually going in, and that did not work. Oh, hang on, sorry. Let me start over. I missed a step. I forgot to drag and drop this onto the surface. Okay. Whew. Okay, cool. Now that I've got it dragged and dropped onto the surface, let's go back and let's do import. Okay, ta-da! And it kind of sort of already figured it out. The schema was smart enough to figure out this was text, and that was numbers. Okay, so that's how that worked. Okay. A couple more examples of importing, and then we're going to get into actually going there and kind of tweaking things. So, the next thing we're going to talk about on page 480 is just importing just plain old text file. Now, we kind of already saw that when we went to we went to data and then from text. It was three choices. Let's say I had a PRN file, which is basically called a space-separated file. Okay. Then you have text file, which is tab-separated. Then you have a CSV file, which is comma separated. And let's go look at one. So here is my stock. Now, is it immediately obvious to you that that's a tab or a bunch of spaces? It's not immediately obvious to me. I can kind of sort of tell by kind of clicking in it that that's really a tab separating those things. But let's say I didn't know for sure. In fact, maybe I didn't even look. Okay. So I'm going to go here, and we're going to import from text. And so I go here and I say, yep, I want to import, and yep, I want this text file. When I hit this little guy, it's going to come up with sort of like an import wizard. Now there's 3 steps to this wizard. The first step basically says, does this even look right? Okay, it shows my data. Now it doesn't show it formatted, okay? But it'll show me, first of all, whether or not I have a header row or things of that nature. And you could have fixed width fields where, you know, everything was lined up exactly, you know, 40 characters here and 20 characters there. Ours wasn't like that. So I'm just going to hit next. And then it's going to say, how is it being separated? Well, let's try. Let's try semicolon. Oh, that didn't work. How about commas? Nope, that didn't work. How about space? No, that didn't work. So tab is what the correct answer is. So I didn't actually have to know, but you can see how if I click, you know, between these delimiters, that it actually figures out, you know, that that's the correct tab. I mean, the correct way to separate them. So if it's a CSV file, it's going to go through this entire procedure. So I've picked all that. Now this next one is basically going to say what columns. You want this to be like now we're talking Excel kind of stuff. Is this text? Is this date? What is it? And during this import, there really isn't all that much choice. Most people kind of sort of leave it at general. Perhaps they go to date, but we're going to have an entire discussion on that. So this looks okay to me. I guess I could go here and kind convert to numbers and things of that nature, but I'm not. I'm going to leave it alone. So I'm just going to hit finish and push the button, and now I have pulled in my web customers name, whatever the heck this thing was. I don't even remember. My stocks. Okay, this is my stocks. Okay. So I've successfully gone in and imported a text file. Yay! Cool. Now, the next one we're going to talk about on page 483 is importing from a Microsoft Access database. Now, this is a little different because when you have a text file or when you have a CSV file or you have a web page, generally you're talking about like one thing, not hundreds of tables. I have databases that have hundreds of tables to look at, and more than likely I don't want to import all 100 of them. So there's got to be a way to kind of go in there and kind of thin out the herd, so to speak. So first, let's look at what a database looks like. So here's a database, and so this has an employee table, and I'm not going to get into too much detail about this because this is not a course in Microsoft Access, but here's a table, and it has, you know, an employee ID, first name, last name, and a department, and then some salary. And the department is not a name, it's a number. And if I go to department, I see all these department things. And so this is a relational database because I have two tables that are related. In fact, one of the cool things you can do is to go here and see the relationship. The relationship is that the employees have a department ID and the department has a department of ID, and they're connected together. So that's kind of a definition, if you will. There's also this thing called a query. This is a built-in SQL statement. If I run this, all it's going to do is stitch these two tables together for me and give me first name, last name, department name, and salary. So it pulled, you know, some stuff from here and some stuff from here and put together a third table. Okay, so that's all you need to know about Microsoft Access. Now, back to Excel. Okay, so let's go to yet another blank space. So here's the thing called From Access. I'm going to go ahead and close this guy down just for no particular reason. Okay, so From Access. And it's going to say, well, where the heck is it? Well, my database is going to be in Chapter 9. And there it is. I say, okay, open this guy. Now, here it's going to come back and say, which table do you want? Now, it shows these two little icons like this. See the little square kind of icon? And then it have a little double thing. Well, that one is what's called a view or a query, where it's multiple tables kind of linked together. And these are just raw individual tables, okay? So it is very, very likely that when you're importing from Microsoft Access, you're going to be pulling a single table. Now, in the 2013 version and 16 version, there's a little checkbox up here that says, would you like to select multiple ones? And if you do, it's going to allow you to select multiple ones, but then it's going to come back and say, hey, would you like to put this in a pivot table? You know, it's going to try to combine them for you and do all sorts of weird stuff. And so just forget it, okay? So I'm going to hit OK on just one of the tables. And then it says, where do you want it? I go, yep, that's fine. And yay, cool. Now, it has done some really cool stuff. First of all, it should be fairly obvious that this is an honest-to-God data table now. Why? Because whenever you click in this thing, you get this table, the table tools guy. Remember that? Like the second or third time that's been on a quiz. So yes, this is a. Hey, let's go to data and go to connections. Yep, I got plenty of these guys now, don't I? Okay, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll continue in just a few.